We're live. Doing it live.
What episode number are we on?
This is episode. Wait.
253.
This is episode 253 of the Radio Impound podcast. I don't know. Did we count the watch along we did the other? No, I'm not counting the watch alongs. So that's really not an episode. So.
Okay. It's fair.
That's fair enough, right? So we're still at 253.
Mm-hmm.
But if we count the watch alongs, and yeah, so that'd be like, I think we only did 2, right? So it'd be 255.
Correct.
Right. I'm good with I'm brushing up on my math, Jason.
Right, left, right.
Yeah. I mean, failed math, but I've been doing pretty good. So
a lot more successful now
than in school, right? A lot more successful. This is the post-Nationals edition, which was a very successful weekend for the J Concepts crew. Am I correct?
It was very successful.
Jake Engstrom saying 4 in a week? 4, man. Would this wouldn't be 4? It would be 3, I think, right? If this is where the math is coming into play here now, Jake. Now you're really. So we did a podcast. I think it's 3 in a week. I'm counting to watch along.
Yeah, it was a successful Nationals for the crew. I mean, we got interestingly enough, I remember this week, it was the same winners in the modified classes from the year before. So Dakota repeated in the stadium truck.
Wow.
Dakota won 2-wheel drive and Spencer won 4-wheel drive. So the same 3 winners in the modified classes. We did have 2 new winners in 17.5 2-wheel buggy was Doug LaRiviere.
Yeah, we struggled with that name in a while. Hey, look who popped into the back room here. We got Clayton Young popped in.
He's ready.
There he is, El Presidente of Roar. What's up, Clayton?
I was early. I was just going to sit backstage until it was time.
Nah, we'll put you in right now. We'll let Jason finish up. Who cares? Jason was talking about all the success that we had over the weekend there.
Yeah,
it was amazing racing for sure.
Yeah, we had a couple new winners.
He was trying to pronounce Doug's last name, which I don't know how you do it, Clayton. All these names. Oh man, I
had to ask him. To be honest, I had to ask.
Yeah, well, even though like they'll tell me and I'll still forget or whatever. So I'm terrible with names. So I was like, oh, thank God, Clayton Young. That's pretty easy. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's I think Doug won 4-wheel drive last year, and then obviously got the 2-wheel.
So are you guys live right now?
Yes.
Yeah, I just threw you right in. We're live.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Sorry. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, so obviously we got Clayton Young on here, the new president of Roar, and how I guess we'll just kind of start. I mentioned to you earlier that we want to kind of go into and talk a little bit about the Nationals that we've had so far this year. I believe your first one that you were at was an on-road, and then we kind of got into some carpet off-road, I believe.
Might have a slight delay on his end.
Is it me? Because I lost Jason for a minute.
Oh, okay. Jason, good. Can you hear Jason now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
I can cord my connection if I need to make sure it's stable, but I would need like 5 minutes to go switch out.
Okay, that's no problem. We'll let Jason continue to brag.
No.
Okay, awesome.
No, I mean if it's working right now, I'm fine with that. But
right,
we'll let him update it.
Yeah, I threw him in there. I surprised him. We're doing it live. Bill Collins is saying, was there any surprise finishes in your opinion? At the Nats?
Let's see. We had the 3 mods. Well, there was a Michael Malott who was running the 40 plus two-wheel drive class, and he was extremely fast all weekend. And in seeding and qualifying, his lap times were amazing. Paul Wynn was kind of getting him on the consistency in the qualifiers, and I think Paul was kind of hoping to, carry that into the main, and that would benefit him in the main as well. And then Michael, I think, put in his best run of the weekend. And Gotti and I, we were watching that one together, where he was jumping that triple in front and got around Paul, and it was just kind of only really a lap left. But I'd say that was, I'm not going to say really a big surprise, but I would say that was probably the only surprise that I've had, I guess. The rest of them, you got Brendan Edwards, great driver, been around a couple races. He won 13.5 truck. And then Mason Templeman, we talked about him having the cool name and him winning short course. Not really a surprise. He's been around many of our races he's been to, doing really well. Doug Riviere, tough. Him winning two-wheel, obviously the battle there with Kyle Go, and that's not really a surprise to me, those two drivers. But then Nate Sutherland winning four-wheel, not a surprise on speed, but he actually did some really mature driving in that race, kind of winning it, I believe, in the second two mains as opposed to the first two. Hold on, just updating here.
I thought it was cool seeing Chase Lemieux in the hunt.
Yeah, no surprise winners other than, like I mentioned, that one with Michael kind of getting in there and having a great race. And who else? You mentioned Chase Lemieux, who I believe he Chase TQ'd both classes last year at the trackside race, the team associated race at trackside. So he's kind of blooming and kind of progressing, and him getting second in four-wheel. He was right up, did a good job in two-wheel mod truck. So he's coming. Like I mentioned on the live stream, we were talking, and he definitely is coming on. It's going to be just a matter of time before he wins one of those Roar Nationals.
John Lee saying that 13.5 short course mains were really good.
They were, they had, I believe, a little bit of back and forth. Doug won the first one. Mason won the second one and the third one. And they were close. They were close races. And, we talk about short course all the time, obviously, but it would be nice to see it a little more popular on a racing side, like it was many years ago. But there's nothing you can really do sometimes to either stop something from growing or bring it back once it's not as popular. But it was still nice to see there was drivers racing it and enjoying it. It's still a big class in terms of RC in general. It's still probably one of the best-selling vehicles.
Still.
Yeah, I think it's still one of the best-selling vehicles in RC. Obviously, the Traxxas Slash, they've sold hundreds of thousands of those things. So at least that's my prediction. And not to mention everybody else that's ever made one. So it's still a big entry-level class. We still sell our products for it. It does pretty well. Albeit it's been a little while since we've updated some of them, or a couple fresh things for SCT, but it's probably time for that.
And I think we're still waiting on Clayton. See,
okay,
hooking up his internet there.
Perfect.
There's getting off the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so we just talked about the three winners: Dakota and Stadium Truck, Dakota and two-wheel buggy, which went to an A3, four-wheel mod. was Spencer Rivkin, and then we had Doug, who won 17.5. And then in Stadium Truck, we had Brendan Edwards in the 13.5 Stadium Truck, and then Mason Templeman in the short course, and Michael Malott with the Masters win. I don't know if they were calling it 40 plus or Masters.
I heard Masters the whole weekend.
Okay, so Masters. Last year, which was 2022, those classes, the 40 plus, were official Roar National Championship classes. This year, they're not.
What?
They call them an exhibition. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think it was because I believe Clayton told me this prior or something, but they have to be introduced as an exhibition first. Going by the actual rules, I believe they have to be first introduced as an exhibition. Then they can make them official classes. So
it's like the World Cup thing.
there you go.
Yeah.
You're on it.
I'm on it. Yeah.
You're on it today. So I think that's the deal there. Maybe next year we'll be back to official Roar classes, but I think when people do win them at this rate or right now, I think they still do feel that it's the same type of award, and I kind of agree. And as Adam Rails mentioned, 13.5 truck was an exhibition for this race too. So I think they're kind of attempting to try a few things and maybe cycle in some new classes or cycle out some classes.
So if you win, you can't claim you're not a national champ in 13.5 truck now. You can go home saying you are, but it's not in the Roar history books.
I believe so.
We
can confirm. We can confirm with Clayton, but I believe that was.
I think Clayton's back here. There we go.
Oh man,
there's Clayton. He's back.
Sorry, I had to record it and repower my modem and
put fuel in the router.
Yeah, kick the cats off the line.
That's good now. There's no delay now. So
awesome.
We're awesome. Yep. No, we were just talking about the expedition race, like 13.5, and then what else did you say? Short course, Jason?
13.5 stadium truck, 40 plus.
Stadium, yep.
And we had some exhibition classes this year, right?
Yeah. So what the idea was that we've kind of become everybody wins a trophy thing, and it probably started an on-road with them breaking up touring car and having stock, super stock mod, and then USGT and VTA all the same chassis kind of deal. So what we did is we looked at attendance from the previous year's Nats and gauged that if you didn't have more than 10 in the class, then you're probably competing more locally than you are nationally. So good or bad, we tried to make a call to not spend a bunch of money on a class where there's only a couple, like maybe 5-6 people, and then put the focus on the classes that have 30-40 people in them. To be national champions, you're competing against the best of the country. The 40 plus, well, it benefits me to be a 40 plus national champion. It doesn't. I feel like you're competing against the older guys. So there's something to be said if there's enough attendance, which I think there is an off-road for the 40 plus being a national champion. But are you a national champion of the two-wheel drive class in mod? You're not competing against the really good guys. You're competing against the older guys. So sure, maybe. I don't know. We're just trying to curtail adding more and more classes to a nationals and get the focus back on truggy buggy, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive.
Right.
And the short course has been kind of dying really hard lately. So,
So to kind of recap, like we started a little while ago, we were talking about kind of your first year with Roar as the president, and then kind of jumping in this year. I believe your first event this year was a carpet on road. Was that your first event this year?
Yeah, that was carpet on road.
And then we went to the carpet off road. Was that your second? Okay,
Yep.
so yeah, I guess so far let's talk about kind of starting off at your first event, kind of some of those highlights, and some of the couple of the highlights of each one that you've kind of been involved with, so far, and maybe some of the good experiences that you've had doing this so far.
Yeah, for me, the good is way far outweighed any of the negative stuff that's going on. The on-road carpet was probably the biggest in 10, 15 years. A lot of it has to do with venue, of course. And, me being an on-road guy, everybody's like, okay, finally, we've got somebody we know that we race with every weekend. Let's go support them and have a good time. And it got huge quick, and it was a lot of fun. There was tons of great racing. Really no big issues. The coverage, we got Live RC to start doing more of like a NASCAR coverage instead of here's your nerd stats at the top and kind of thing. Get some driver pictures, driver names.
Yeah, I
when
like
we're
that.
covering them, let's make this feel more in touch. And so I started doing interviews so people could see the drivers, not just a car that's going around a track, but get some FaceTime with the people who are actually doing this. And hey, I've raced against him, kind of deal. And so it went fairly well. It took a while to get that going because that was the first race with Live RC trying to implement the name boxes and driver pictures, and we were doing it on the fly, and they did a good job by main time of being able to post that stuff as it's happening and put the titles and stuff up. That I thought that was fairly good.
That's a great idea. Yep.
We kept that going to the off-road carpet race. We got a little more inventive because Keenan showed up and we was able to do some of the interviews, but I was also racing. So that was extremely crazy to try and run 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, and do interviews. I literally didn't see my cars, and like I'd work on them. I'd get there an hour before everybody got there. I'd wrench on them, and then I'd go do all the stuff and do my run. There was one time where I did an interview, had to sprint back across the track, and somebody dropped my buggy down just so I could run my qualifier. It got kind of crazy. But when Keenan showed up, it made it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then he had to go before all the mains were done. But I feel like getting the people that are watching the broadcasts or even watch the recordings later, having that FaceTime and drivers that that are your local drivers, getting some FaceTime, I feel like that helps the sport grow and put more people in touch, and maybe more people want to come to nationals.
So you kind of got it going there at the carpet race, and just to kind of give me an idea, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but what were the classes that you offered there at the carpet nationals? I don't know if you remember.
We had stock and mod, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive.
No, I mean in the carpet on-road one.
So in carpet on-road, we had 12 scale, stock, super stock, and mod. And then we had touring, stock, super stock, and mod. And we made USGT, VTA, and GT12 all exhibition classes. So we basically had 6 championship classes, which were our core work your way to worlds classes. And then we had the Funster, or the get into the sport a little bit slower classes, be the exhibition. And their attendance was actually really well. Like I believe there was 30 to 40 in at least USGT and VTA, and then GT12, I'm pretty sure had an A, B, and C. So they had a lot of numbers in those classes.
What was, out of those, you've raced quite a few of them. What's your favorite out of those different ones that you run there?
So I kind of cut my teeth on VTA and USGT. So those used to be my favorite, but I kind of got shamed out of them and had to start running touring car because once and it's not fun for most people unless you're at a big race to have somebody just be a lot faster than anybody else. So it wasn't bad. It was good because it made me work on my stuff. Touring car is much more difficult to drive and get set up. So it forced me to get better in that. And it kind of all just kind of clicked. all around, I believe it was 2019. I took a TQ in touring. I went to the Reedy race and got second. And I was just like, oh, I can drive. Where did this come from?
Wow, I never experienced that.
And so obviously the carpet on road. Where was that event at?
That was at EA's track in Memphis, Tennessee, or
Okay.
Nashville, outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, and then we moved over to Beachline.
Yep.
We ran the carpet off-road nats, which what's really difficult to judge here. That's not sidetracking too much, but I know we were leading up to a lot of these events, many of them. What I noticed is it's really hard to get people to pre-register for these races, and it really makes it very confusing for everybody. I think that's either preparing or trying to get into them, because lots of times people pile in numbers, right? So then if they look at things and it doesn't look that great, they may shy away, or you maybe attract a couple guys that are trophy hunting. But by and large, I think people do look at those numbers. But then the race comes along. I'm thinking at Beachline, and it ended up being I thought was a very successful event. And I want to say the entries outweighed what maybe there was the year before at Northwest. I can't remember exactly. It was
Definitely did.
It was like in the 160 to 180 range. I don't remember exactly.
I think at the Florida race we got over 200, but by the time we started racing, I don't think we had pre-registered that many.
Right.
Or if we did, they like the last week there was like this huge surge of entries, which were like from a get ready to host a race. It makes it difficult if you don't have a good idea on what the final number is going to be, because then we don't know if we're sending too little or too many people. We don't always have the awards for all the mains. If we get 10, 15 drivers that sign up at the last second, then the top 3 for the D or E main may not have those trophies. So we'll go out of our way and have our trophy guys send them an award if they want one at the race, but it's not quite the same as being able to hand them something as they finish, kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you talked earlier, you did a lot more with being having the race live. You did a lot more talking with the racers and the interviews after each. You obviously were really busy with that when I was at Beachline. Getting down there on the track and interviewing people after qualifiers, after mains and stuff, and that was nice because it's live, and like you said, it gives those drivers a little bit of a shout out. And if there's anybody watching that, friends, family, there's always something people throw in the comments, like which makes it kind of a little bit more of a community, I guess. And there at Beachline, like you said, and I think getting those pre-entries is always to us kind of pretty critical, when we do the events we do, because you look at that, right? And you're trying to determine, what am I preparing for? And we were a little concerned about the Beachline, but then it kind of kicked in there at the end. And I felt like it was a really good event. I raced myself. I ran the Masters, or the 40 plus,
40 plus,
whatever
I
we're
threw myself
calling it.
in there.
And then we had I did 2-wheel mod because I was out there. But, like I talked to people earlier about these races, and I felt like I got to practice a lot. I felt like I got on the track many times. I felt the 4 qualifiers was really nice. The tech I felt was really easy going. I mentioned that to you. It was kind of a little nicer, softer technical inspection, which I thought was easy to get through, easy to get on the track. And there was a lot of track time, I felt, for qualifiers, and then the mains. I thought it was a really good experience as a racer, and I kind of felt like we got up to close, like you said, close to 200 there in the end. But I kind of felt like people that didn't go kind of missed a nice laid out event.
Yeah, and that was my hope. No matter how many people we had attend, if we put on a good event and we take care of the people that are there, they'll spread the word, because RC's a bunch of word of mouth anyways. And then for next year, we'll get better tracks that want to host and more people that want to come. And eventually we can get to where regionals mean something. So you qualify through a regional to get to nationals, and kind of just snowball and keep working its way to make the community itself bigger and bigger and more professional, and help the younger kids or even just newer people coming into the sport learn what to do and get better and get faster.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought it was a really good experience. I thought we had obviously some really great racing there. You did, kind of loaded up on the media a lot more through Roar's channels, and kind of were able to promote a lot of the racers that were having success in all the mains. And I thought that was pretty neat, and that was a good, a big improvement over where we had been, several years past, where we were lucky to be live at the right time, or having the coverage or any interviews, or it felt like a little bit more direction going on there, and in terms of the coverage. And then when we got into tech as a racer, I felt like in tech they were helping me go through tech instead of more like almost trying to find something wrong.
That is definitely the direction. Instead of trying to find a reason to disqualify somebody, if you see something, tell them what they need to do to make it better so that they can race. I really don't want people not being able to get on the track. If somebody comes up with a super hot pack, there's no time or whatever, then okay, there's certain situations you can't avoid. But for the most part, nobody's coming up there on purpose to do something wrong. So let's get them through and make sure that they've got everything right when they get on the track.
So, obviously I was able to experience that one personally. Where did you go from there? Was the fuel nats next, or did you have another one in between there?
Paved nats.
Okay.
In Florida.
Yep. Okay. Was that in Coral Springs, right?
That was Coral Springs.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've been there, I don't want to say 1,000 times, but it's probably definitely 900. And, we raced over there at the off-road track primarily.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
I was going to say, pave, man, what the heck?
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was that much of an on-road
Well, you got
guy.
the slash.
Yeah, I mean, we were over there at the off-road track most of the time. And I mean, we were reviewing an old car action. This was maybe a week ago, Gotti and I, and they had an article on the Coral Springs RC Club from, it was like 1991 or something. And it's in that same location. That track is in the same location as it was back then. And, you go through those neighborhoods there.
Right.
It looks like you're thinking,
there's no track here. What is this?
There's no track here, and then you turn, and all of a sudden you're in this, there's a big trees and big bushes, and pretty soon there's a track right there. So, yeah, we've been going there forever, and it was kind of cool that they had the on-road race there. Although I think this was probably one of the smaller turnout races.
Yeah, so definitely was. And I'm not exactly sure why the turnout was low. Maybe time of year, because usually it's a July race, and so it was fairly early. It was a May race, and it was on Memorial Day weekend, which people have plans. Mm-hmm. So probably time of year and specific date, which is something we got to work on going forward with these nationals. We don't want to be going to Arizona when it's baseball springtime and everybody's got to pay $400 a night for a room. Like, when is the best time for all the people to get there and not have to spend an arm and a leg? They're already going to spend an arm and a leg already with tires or whatever they have to do just to get a room and, getting there, planes, whatever. So we got to do a better job of making sure that we're in the place we want to be at the best time for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, so, on-road is really big in Florida in general over the years. I mean, they have the longest running state series, I think, of all states. I don't remember what Paul was telling me. It's like 40 years or something like that. They've had a state series in Florida. There's, I would say a good portion of the Roar Nationals, the last probably 10 or 20 years, have probably been in Florida. There's been a bunch of them here, the paved ones. And, but there's a lot of good tracks. I think the So they must obviously always apply, right?
Right.
You get a lot of applications from tracks in Florida, and I guess it's probably part of it is because of that state series we have here is very popular, and they feel like, hey, on road should be here in Florida, and they do. Over the years they seem to have quite a few of them here, but yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer, but like you said on the turnout, but like you said, there was a lot of factors going on there, and just sometimes it's a hit or miss type of thing, right?
Yep.
So same classes at the paved as the carpet on-road nationals, or was there any differences?
So there was not 12 scale because there's usually not 12 scale outside. It's
Okay.
kind of died off the last few years. But they did run GT12. They did run VTA. They added a front wheel drive USGT and a regular USGT. But at that race, most of those classes were less than 10 cars. The touring car had stock, super stock, and mod. And those, I believe those were all full. I know I ran stock. And there was definitely an A and a B. I don't think super stock might have had an A and a B. Same with mod, but if it was a B, it wasn't a full B. If it was a full or if there was a B.
So when there's stock and super stock, is stock 17.5 and super stock 13.5?
No, stock is 21.5. Super
Okay.
stock is 17.5.
Okay, and that's kind of across the board in all the on-road classes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then there isn't any 13.5 classes then, or
no. When I first kind of got into RC seriously 8 years ago, it seemed like it was 17.5 and 13.5. But now, if I think about it, 21.5s are probably 2 laps faster than a 17.5 from 18 years ago or from 8 years ago. The 21.5 motor work has gotten ridiculous to where it's only a few tenths off of a 17.5. It's pretty crazy.
It is, and you know what? We're seeing a lot more 21.5 entries and racers wanting to do it also on the off road side and the races that we do. We had it actually was a control motor class for several years. We did with Hobby Wing where Ron Schur attended the races, with us and handed out, the motors to the racers for the 21.5 class. Now we just, because we kind of coined this term indie, which we use on our events and our series for independent racers. And at first we did 21.5 for that. And now we're doing 17.5 just to make it a little easier. And we don't have to do the motor handout. But I was just curious as, just to make sure on the naming, how you guys named it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just stock, super stock, and mod. It would be nice to be able to have a spec motor that people weren't able to mess around with idea, or maybe make stock so slow that the sponsored guys don't run it. But
I like that idea.
We're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
I've talked with some motor manufacturers about slower than 25.5 motors. And I know one of them's working on something, but it's not out there yet. And I don't know how adjustable it would be.
Yeah. I mean, that's the on-road's kind of been famous for that over the years. Is a lot of stepping down happens in that class. It's like, it used to be, you were modified, then they're like, pretty soon they were running stock, everybody's running stock and mod. And then it's like, you invent another class and then they drop again. You're like, man, we don't want everybody in this class. Like it's, it's supposed to be, it's like, it's great that you want to race so much, but it's like, we're trying to like kind of control and leave an entry level style of class is the way we look at it when we do our races. But
yeah. So if I raced one of your races, would I guess I wouldn't be an Indy. I would just be stock.
Yeah, I mean, if you were unsponsored, you would race in Indy. If you are sponsored, then you would race in the 17.5 or 13.5 class.
I definitely want to get to one of those races. They look like they're so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, we can kind of go into that a little bit later, but it's different. We've been doing them a long time now, also, and we've tried to experiment over the years with the classes, with the motors, do different things, but and right along, and Roar obviously doing a lot of experimentation, with trying to lock these classes down. What are true national championship classes? What are classes that are
Oh, man.
fun but filler? It adds people, adds racers. It's always a fine line, but Larry Tom, who owns Hobby Action, where the Worlds obviously is here in about a month, is at his track 21.5. The lock timing, he said, is huge. That's somewhere that I've noticed that has done really, really well with having that 21.5 as part of his club level racing.
What motor is that? Do you know?
We'll have to ask him which locked 21.5 he's using. I'm not exactly sure if he's using a Hobby Wing or whatever, but he'll comment here.
I need to call him anyways because we both have so many questions about that race because we haven't gotten very many responses from IFMAR. So, like, I feel like him and I are just going to have to bang out the details, and when IFMAR shows up, we'll recover whatever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a whole conversation unto itself, but I know they're full throttle forward. Larry did a video with Jake a couple weeks ago. I know Paul kind of updated me on, he watched that one, and what they're doing there in the facility and getting ready, and I mean, everybody's excited, to attend. So there you go. So Larry comments that they allow the Hobby Wing, Reedy, and much more with a fixed gear ratio. So,
and they're all the same timing.
So yeah, so it has a fixed gear ratio. My guess is they're the same timing, and so I don't know.
I didn't even know there's that many fixed timing motors. That's awesome.
So obviously they got a system that's working for him. So that's nice to know. Yeah. So. He's kind of commenting here that it's, my guess is it's not exactly as easy as it sounds, but but yeah, and I can imagine it's anytime you're dealing with power in RC, it's kind of a mess. So I kind of joke about this sometimes. I'm like, the most powerful vehicles in RC in general are the best sellers in the basher market, right? It's like the most powerful cars you can buy are the most popular. And then for some reason, once we get to racing, people like to take power out and race. And you're like, okay, so in general, when people buy a car, they buy the fastest thing they can get. If it says 65 or 85 miles an hour on the box, that's the ones. Like if you look at Traxxas, and these other Arma and all these companies that sell mega amounts of RC cars, the fastest ones do really, really well. And then you get to racing, and for some reason, people are like, oh, that's too fast for me. I got to run 21.5. You're like, okay, yeah, I get it. So.
Wow. For a while, mod's kind of scary, especially if you run stock a lot. Like you put that mod motor in and you go to hit the throttle and you're like, well, I'm going to hit the wall. But I've started running it in touring car at our track just to get me better at stock even. And it really isn't as scary. You typically don't hit as much stuff because you're not driving so aggressively in every corner, at least for me. And it's never too much power if you just don't pull the throttle all the way.
Right. So we'll move on from the paved nats. We get into the fuel nats, which I believe was the next one, and at Chico, California there. And I mean, from my perspective, I thought it was awesome. Like, I mean, that was definitely one of my favorite events of the year. Again, you guys went with, and this race always seems to do the best in terms of it sells out usually. People sign up ahead of time.
Right.
It seems like as far as the way you want them to go, the fuel nats always seems to be the one that checks a little few more of the boxes. Like, okay, you know, this is a little going a little more according to plan.
Yeah, definitely. It went well, and actually everybody was so nice when I got there. I kind of
Wow.
expected a little more, not hostility, but like skepticism. But
Right.
like I did that drivers meeting and everybody applauded and cheered, and I was like,
You're
"Whoa,
like,
wait a
yes,
second,
yes.
what is that?" Drivers meeting, everybody's supposed to be like, "Yeah, whatever, stupid rules." But I mean, it really went well because I think Mayfield asked, like, "What about headlights and taillights?" I'm like, "We're not doing the stupid rules anymore. We'll suggest them, but we're not going to disqualify for aesthetics. That's just silly."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's probably where you got your big applause, right?
Well, it was after the whole meeting, but yeah, that probably helped a lot. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
I mean, going back before we get into that, when we used to, this was before a lot of people, but there used to be a NORCA Nationals, right? There was another sanctioning body in RC called NORCA. So there was ROAR and NORCA. So when we would do those nationals, they had a guy that ran them. His name was J.R. Sitman. And obviously, there was a lot that he was doing at the time that was a little ahead of his time. And they were big events too. We would do 500, 600, 700 entry races for NORCA back in the kind of early
90s.
mid-90s. And but he was really famous for his drivers meetings because he would, you know, kind of be a dick to people at times. Like he would do like you're talking about. He would get on the driver's stand and start going through his spiel on what the race, you know, the rules and the race. And if people were talking out on the track, he would stop.
Like a teacher.
And he would look at them and he would say, "Are you guys finished?" And
Love it.
Exactly like the teacher thing, right?
Yeah, you got to do that, Clayton, next time.
And
You guys finished?
it was just hilarious. And I mean, you got up, you know, it got to the point where you're like, man, I don't want to be called out. You know, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know,
When my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. There you go. Do that one, Clayton.
I didn't write that one down.
Yeah, please do that one at one of these races for me.
So yeah, that's funny because that kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, they were good events back then. We had some great nationals there too. But it was definitely different than ROAR. But it just, yeah, your driver's meeting thing reminded me of that. But yeah, so anyway, you said you were surprised by the turnout, the you know, the hospitality and the racers kind of being nice.
Yeah, I had almost every big name driver came up and said they really appreciated what we've been doing and how the events have been going and how they've been treated. And so I had some track owners come up and say, you know, I've never wanted to host a ROAR race and I always hated ROAR. But right now I would go out of my way to get a winning bid for one of these races. And I mean, that means a lot to me. That means that, you know, we're not going to be forced to, hey, this is the only track to bid on this. So here we go. Like, no real choices. But this should be giving us a lot more choices. And that'll be better for racers in general to be able to go to the big tracks that are hosting all these big races and big events and have that support.
You know, and, you know, we did you kind of got everybody together there. We did a little bit of a manufacturers meeting there at the race. Everybody kind of gets together and talks a little bit, you know, the manufacturers, and then you were in there and some of the guys representing ROAR. Obviously, lots of things kind of get sidetracked and everybody sometimes gets off topic and they're always a little bit of a mess. But in general, you wanted to hear from, you know, the manufacturers or the team managers about how the race was going, kind of touch base. You know, you kind of reestablished your email address list and tried to make sure, you know, the guys that want to stay in touch can stay in touch with you, which I thought was good. And then just the race itself, to me, I've heard other racers talk about, you know, different things. And you know, to me, what stuck out was the 10-minute qualifiers in buggy, the warm-ups. There was a true warm-up. the drivers could send their cars out, do a warm up, refuel, and then there was the 10-minute qualifiers, which for most, everybody but Adam Drake basically has to do a pit stop. And I mean, I thought that was great. I thought everybody got a lot of practice on the track. I thought everybody got a ton of track time, especially in the buggy class, doing those 10-minute qualifiers. Most people doing a pit stop, they got their pit person involved. And to me, I thought that was a big success, because what I hear a lot of times at these events is, and everybody runs them. They're popular events. We've sponsored them forever, the race time events, but it's only 5 minutes. You're on the track, and this is because of the turnout. If you have 700 entries, you can't give everybody 10 minutes on the track.
Right.
So
you'd never
Yeah.
get through a race.
The time's got to come from somewhere. And so you guys did the 10-minute qualifiers, and we were still getting done at a reasonable time every night. I want to say it was 6:00. We were getting done.
We had the first night was a little bit late because we had to get in some seating and practice, and because we started the event a day late, so we tried to make up for lost time. But most days we were done 6:30, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and that was great. I mean, the racers that are there, they got the practice, they got the 10-minute qualifiers, they got a real warm up to run the cars a couple laps, come in, refuel, get out there, and done by, like you said, 6:30. And so I thought that was a big success. From my standpoint, I didn't race, but while I was there, the kind of track that it was and the type of event that it was, it appealed to me as a racer, and not as a spectator and a racer.
Yeah, and they had good spectator areas too. A lot of the comments that I got weren't not from the big name guys, but the guys that would go to a Wicked Weekend or an AMS. They were like, "This is hands down the best race I've been to all year." Like in a year's time, we got so much track time, and everything kept on schedule, and we weren't running in the midnight hours, and like all the stuff you were just pointing out. It was said by a lot of the younger guys too, because while I was marshaling down on the track, I would ask some of the guys on the track, "Hey, what do you think?" And a lot of them, I never got a negative comment. All of them were super positive and appreciated that whole track time.
Yeah, and then you obviously ran we run the ladder format in 8 scale buggy at that event, where you do the bump ups, not the traditional ABC finals. We do the ladder system with the quarterfinal, semifinal, A final, and 30-minute semifinal, 1 hour A final. It's always the great tune up for the guys that potentially could run and go to a Worlds. There's a lot of general excitement there. When you kind of when I've been to the Worlds, I've explained to people, this is a program that ramps up as the event goes on. So that's the way it's designed, is it ramps up. So you start off, you got your practice, and then you get into qualifying, and you get into this different events, and then there's the mains. Then you start bumping up towards the top of the field, to the point where it's semifinal, and there's nothing like the time period between the semifinal and the A finals, where the drivers are preparing. There's sort of a little bit of anticipation about getting those cars back out there. And then you start your 60-minute final, which is supposed to be the highlight of the weekend.
Right. We're also thinking about taking some of the stuff that I don't know if they're doing it IFMAR or not, but like the LCQ to bridge that hour-long gap that we have of dead time. We could put an LCQ in there and have those people bump. They won't get a full hour, but they'll get to make the A. And it'll be a little more entertainment value for everybody there watching.
Yeah, so when right now, I believe you ran was it a 15 and under, kind of a young guns kind of class, right?
Yeah, we made it 16 because there wasn't that many entries. So I think we ended with 12 by adding the 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we're gonna keep that. Like, I want to make a junior main where they don't have to pay for anything. They just, they're gonna run their main as and be a junior champion. Kind of make that like a standard thing. It kind of seems silly that we had a juniors class that would make them pay whatever $7,500 for, and they're 15 years old or less trying to learn how to do this. So I'd like to make that a more standard thing where we're kind of promoting sport and getting things out there. I've also talked to some tracks about having how to practice, like a demo area for spectators, so they could, run a slash around and have a circle with a jump or whatever, just so they could get that experience and not just see it, but do it, kind of deal. So hopefully we can incorporate some of the races next year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that'd be really fun to incorporate in, and I had a blast doing that event there, and so then we kind of moved on. I was probably the highlight, I would say, to the year so far. The Fuel Nats, obviously, good winning, good racing. The came down to the end there in Truggy, and so we had some good finals, junior final, and then we rolled in. I guess the E Nationals was next, right?
Yep, E Nats was next, and again that was I think we had 78 pre-registered, and we ended with 138, so almost doubled the entries at the track. Wow. I don't understand it because it's expensive to pay all the late fees, but for some people it works, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I totally agree, and obviously that was there at Frank Calandra's track in Rome, New York. First time I'd ever been to that area of New York before. I told him I was kind of guilty of when people say, "Hey, I'm from New York," you just think they're like from Manhattan, right?
Right.
Yeah. But obviously you go into that area. Is a beautiful drive from where I was to get over there. And then for whatever reason, we had like amazing weather that weekend.
Perfect. There was no heat whatsoever. It was amazing.
Yeah, we had these indoor pit spots that Frank had reserved for me and Hannah and several others that paid to be in there. But the other drive, I told Mayfield and the guys, I'm like, well, you can pit inside if you want, and he's just like, it's awesome outside. I'm just gonna. And we missed really the weather. There was
it wasn't like 110 degrees for Mayfield.
Yeah,
he probably loved it.
Yeah, he said it was like 115 or 18 at home. In Arizona, he gets there and it was like 79. So, there at the E Nationals, like you said, the entries doubled compared to pre-entries, which was kind of frustrating for us too, because we were trying to prepare and we're trying to look at the entries. And again, when I got there, like you said, I got greeted by every single person that was from CRC, from Frank to his wife to everybody that was there,
and Mark,
making sure that we were, people were parked in the right place. They had the tents up there on the hill. They wanted to, to kind of organize the pits. They had the tents that they set up for the racers that needed some outdoor pitting. And then, several people brought their own tents, and it was kind of a nice little atmosphere there around the track.
Yeah, it was nice. It was kind of like the whole off-road nitro scene where everybody's got their campers and tents, and you can walk through and say hi to people. I mean, generally when I go to a race, I try and find the team principals and at least see how they're feeling, bounce some ideas for the future off them, get some temperatures, and make sure everything's going well. And that was, I mean, like you said, the weather was amazing. So you literally didn't sweat to death or anything, and you could just walk from low C to Associated to X-ray to Techno. Like everybody was just like in a nice little flow.
Yeah, and we, what I noticed, another thing when we got there is I know, Ryan, obviously I'm working close with Mayfield all the time, but he wasn't really happy with his last couple of races. He ran an e-buggy, so for that race, he pretty much built a completely stock car again, went with a different battery pack configuration. And he kind of needed some time on the track. He wanted some runs to kind of figure out a little more what he was doing with his e-buggy program. And I kind of felt like he got a little bit of a benefit of the way the program was there, because there was extra time. There was plenty of practice. He got plenty of practice on the track with the e-buggy. He didn't start off that great. He wasn't all that happy getting started. And then kind of there was a little bit of time where he could get on the track each time between trying car stuff, tire stuff, to the point where he was able to kind of peak out in the main events. And, he got that e-buggy win, which I know the techno guys were excited about. But had it been a little bit smaller or a little shorter qualifiers or less practice, I don't think he would have been able to pull that off. And I thought it was kind of nice. There was a little longer, I believe it was 7 minutes there.
7 minutes, yep.
7-minute qualifiers and did, was a triple 7-minute mains, right?
Yep.
Which, I think, Ryan's run almost every one of the E-Nationals, and I know there's been a few of them that were 10 minutes at times, but the 7 seemed like a pretty nice balance. And if you had more entries, you could still probably get everybody through.
Yeah, I kind of based the 7 off of the temperature of talking to some of the manufacturers and what we had done, I think, the year prior. So and I think in our rules it says 5 to 10 minutes. So it was definitely in the middle of that. And like you said, nobody had any issues. The weather wasn't super hot, so people weren't overheating anything. Things just, again, went fairly well.
Yeah, and obviously they kind of had they're at CRC Raceway. The way the track was constructed and their sort of their neighbors around there, I know that they were really concerned about the dust there. They had to kind of keep their watering on schedule, or at least doing it at night, or they had some concerns about dust from their neighbors. So they tried to keep some water on there. But did you work with those guys much on what they needed to do to the track, or you just kind of let them do what they needed to do?
So we talked to them prior, and then let them, like, we ran a round and then they would treat the track, and then we would run another round and they would treat the track. They would let us know if they thought something was going away or jump needed any repair. But probably because of the weather, without it being blazing hot, the track kind of retained its natural moisture or traction throughout the run, so it didn't become any kind of an issue.
And and it was more of a traditional. I mean, it sucks to say, it's hard to figure out the right way to say it, but it was more of a traditional dirt off-road track, right? Like, it was that outdoor dirt from New York there that they probably is just in the ground. It's not brought in or specially prepared. It's kind of rolled out, and they keep it watered, and a little bit of what people say online, the old school dirt, right?
Yeah, the crossover made me a little nervous, but the dirt itself, I mean, it was like the dirt I would play with in Northern California. It was just dirt. Like, there was nothing special about it. It wasn't red clay. It was just dirt. It would break up, and they pat it back down and water it and make it not all rooty.
So obviously we got we just had 8-scale buggy, 8-scale truck. And then we had a couple exhibition classes there too. Talk about some of those.
Yeah, I'm trying to read. We have an over 40
buggy and truck, right? There was like a masters.
Yeah, masters for both of them. We had some other classes, but again, with it was the 10th scale truggy thing that they were going to try and run, but there was only like 3 entries.
Yeah.
So going up there, like, we had to make a decision. Are we going to hope that people show up or whatever? And that was kind of I probably should have talked to Garland a little bit more, who's our off-road guy, vice president, before just making a call. But with the low entries, I made a call, and it wasn't the most popular, but it worked out, and we learned, and we'll try and do better next time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the reality is sure, you're staring at 3 entries, and it's like, And then you have people, once you cancel it, they say, oh, I was going to run that class. Or it's like, well, we kind of like to hear a little more from you if you're going to run the class, and we need to pump it up, right? There needs to be some entries in there. You can't just decide you're going to show up and because the reality is you're trying to get that class going. You want entries. It's not that you don't want to eliminate these classes. What you want is you want entries in them. And if drivers aren't going to commit to racing it, signing up and going, then you're not going to just keep having it on the entry form every single time.
Right. It's exactly right. If there's not enough entries, and a track doesn't request to run the class, we won't even offer it. Like we're going off of, status from the last couple nats. If there's been less than 10 last 2 nats, the track doesn't see it as a local class that they would get entries for, then we probably won't even offer it. Most of the time we offer our championship or our world championship classes and what the track suggests as other classes, and then look at what the attendance has been, and then, put that on the flyer.
So, overall, like you said, the entries kind of, came in a little higher at the end. We had the early days. I think we were almost getting done about 4:35 there.
Yep.
We're done pretty soon, right?
Yep. And I think for fuel nats, I don't believe we had practice rounds in the morning because we're running such long races, and we had warm-ups before the races. They had at least the 2-minute rocket round was their 2 minutes of warm-up before the race, and then they can make any adjustment and do the race. But there we did that 2-minute warm-up, I believe, in the mornings, and then ran the rounds, and we were done fairly early with I think it was 138 entry count on that one.
And, I think in general, the year previous to that at Garland's track, the entries kind of came in late there too, but it was somewhere similar there, right? It was the 130, 140 range, I think.
Yeah, and they were competing with the Visions first time race. So drivers were trying to figure out, how do I go to Nats and run the Visions and bounce back and forth? And so it made it very difficult. So this time we made sure we didn't put anything on top of each other. Yeah. But it was still, there was a big race at LCRC that might have kept some of the local or the non-national drivers in that area. So one of those things that we got to make sure we do is have the off-road people as part of the committee. So when we're making these date calls, someone can say, hey, wait, no, that's when DNC is, or AMS is that weekend. Like, we can't be doing something like that. So we don't make races on top of other big races.
So, now we kind of roll into the most recent one, which I've been to 3 Roar Nationals this year. I didn't attend this one. That was just happened over the weekend. And, really I wanted to set up because Mayfield was going to go to the Mugen Challenge at LCRC, which is this week. So I talked to our crew and I was like, well, you guys go do the Roar 10 scale nats. Paul decided he was going to run in the Masters. Tyler Hooks, he ran the 17.5, 13.5. We got Hannah there doing our media as usual. So, we still had what we were talking about earlier was our 3-headed monster from J Concepts there. But I stayed back, watched it online, which is actually kind of a nice experience because I got to see the interviews you're talking about. I got to, kind of watch we were giving the cameraman a little bit of a hard time watching because they had the low views, right?
Yeah, we got to work on when to use those.
Well, it looked like because at the driver's stand, it was getting out of range, so you had to put that camera in the corner, I think. But every time I went to the corner,
zoom the camera a little bit too. Like they have the zoom thing on their.
But I guess it looked like it was just too close. So I don't know. But anyway, every time I went to that corner view, I lost. I was like, wait, where am I at?
Right.
When it came back, I was like, is this the leader? What's going on?
So what we did is,
it was fine.
Gotti and I jumped on. I think we did. What was it? Friday that we did. We did Friday podcast Saturday, Friday, and or was it Saturday, Sunday?
I can't remember now. Sunday. Sunday, the mains, the watch along.
Well, yeah, we did the watch along on Sunday for the mains. So we ran your broadcast from Live RC. So we watched all the interviews. We watched the entire event basically online, which was kind of nice because we were able to, really just kind of experience it as somebody would be watching at home instead of normally I'm there, in
Right.
person. So you don't see
You were kind of doing the Peyton and Eli thing. You were doing your own broadcast or announcing of the race. So we got dual broadcasts. We should have
Yeah.
streamed both of those side by side.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Silent screen. So
Hope I don't get in trouble for that.
so it was fun. It was a good opportunity to, to kind of watch online as opposed to just to being there. But
And I'm never there, so I'm always watching online. So
yeah,
to me,
Jason won't fund you to go around with him.
he said he's coming to the Worlds.
Okay, we'll have lots of time there. We'll be there for 10 days.
Yeah,
right.
well, yeah. Jason has me coming midweek though.
What?
The flight was too expensive for the full 10.
The flight's the same price. You're just coming to different
yeah.
day.
Oh no, that was the hotels. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you go.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The two-wheel drive is a premier class though, as Jason likes to say, right?
Well, yeah. So we'll talk about that. But so.
No, I only can
what I
make
was
it
going to say
midweek,
is, obviously I talked to you, Clayton. We, several of us talked to you, I guess, about the 10 scale off-road nationals. We were all a little concerned about the surface.
Yep.
We're like, man, we've heard some, guys don't know what tires to run, and I know our guys got there and we brought, we had like 3 or 4 different compounds there. Of course, you're all on slicks these days, but, we talked earlier and I think you did some, touching base with everybody. And, to me watching, I thought the layout was really awesome. The track layout looked really cool. And, we mentioned Sean a bunch of times, how he was kind of out there kind of busting his ass, like keeping it, watered, but then he's got the towel out there and trying to make sure everything's consistent. But it was a tough surface. I mean, I think all the drivers talked about that in their interviews, but I thought the track layout was really, really neat. And I know people watching online, when we were paying attention, they loved the looks of the track.
It looked like it would have been a blast to drive. Like I didn't get to drive it. I didn't have a vehicle or anything to play around with, but it looked like it was super fun. It was technical, but it looked like if you got it right, it just looked like it was one of those, man, that was fun.
Yeah.
When you did a good lap.
Yeah, and I think that's what, was kind of explained to me. That was the first thing Paul told me when he called after one of the first days. He's like, hey, actually the layout is amazing to drive. It's super fun. And he's like, we're just all trying to figure out what we need to do with our tires. And I think it was a rough, like, first day and a half. And then I started getting some text that was like, all right, the guys are calming down a little bit. They're not...
So I didn't show up till Saturday. So I showed up after everybody started to calm down, which is nice.
Yeah, but I was getting the text, and it was like, these guys are a little concerned. They were kind of wound up pretty tight about it. But it sounded like once the seating started, it sounded like it kind of tamed down a little bit, and everybody started just kind of racing like normal, and it wasn't as much of a concern as it was initially when they got there.
Yeah, I was thanking God that didn't turn out to be the way everybody thought it would be, because it wasn't like wasn't hearing it from one person. I was hearing it from different manufacturers, different drivers, different drivers that had different attitudes. Like some of them were calm and some of them were hyper. So you kind of always take that into play when somebody's like, "Oh my God, this is never going to work." And you're like, "Okay, yeah, you say that about every track. Okay, cool."
Yeah.
I really have some concerns. Have you reached out to him? And every time I'd reach out to Sean, to his credit, he'd be like, "Hey, I'm on it. We're going to put a sprinkler system in. We're going to make sure." Like, one of the concerns from the warm-up race is that they had to take 2 minutes in between each round to re-prep the track so the track would be somewhat consistent. But they didn't have a sprinkler system yet. So even during the race, they dropped that sprinkler system probably 4 or 5 times to replace nozzles that had got gummed up and they were just dripping down and putting water spots on the track. They literally kept that thing as pristine as it could. And the track, to me, it never rooted up or anything. It looked fairly consistent other than the dust part or making it slippery as the run would go on.
So obviously we got through the race in itself, and this was another one. Started really, really soft on the entries. I mean, it sat at like 20 something for a while, then it was at like 40 or 50. I think the last time we were looking, it was in the 60 range, and we were like, oh man, this, where's this going to go? And
Yeah.
are we talking about a 100 entry race, or are we talking about a 50 entry race that we're going to? And for us, we got 3 people going, and it's obviously a concern, and we just want there to be entries and racers there. That's what brings the atmosphere, right? If you're going and it's a ghost town, then the atmosphere isn't there. But again, it seemed like the entries picked up a little bit at the end and kind of spiked there and maybe almost doubled again.
So we went there with 128. I think we ended at 168, 160 something. So 40-ish entries that were late. Not quite as bad as ENAT's, because I think there was like 60 or 70 there.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, that 40 is enough that there was, I think there was a D main or an E main. Maybe there was a lower main that we just didn't have trophies for, and we're like, hey, we're sorry, we got extra entries. If you want, want the license plate trophy deal, just let me know. And a couple of them emailed, and we're going to have them drop shipped from the manufacturer. So a couple of them did, and that's fine. Yeah, we'll compensate. It would just be better and cheaper if we knew in advance, so we could have that stuff there at the track.
And obviously the classes here generally, I want to say the classes are the same as the carpet off-road nationals, right? There's no change between dirt and carpet. It's pretty much identically the same classes, I think, right?
Yeah, I feel like carpet, maybe we didn't have a mod stadium truck. I feel like there was some class that we had on dirt that we didn't have on carpet, but I'm not sure. And we did cancel the mod short course truck because there was only 2 entries, and we didn't. We asked a few weeks prior saying, hey, look, if you're gonna put them in, please put them in so we don't cancel the class. And people still got mad when we canceled the class, and we're like, why'd you do that? You didn't tell us again. And then you referenced the Facebook page of here we did. And then they're like, okay, well, can you give us even more notice? And you're like, sure. Like, do you want me to start like a month into registration saying, hey, we only have 20 entries, please sign up? Like, I'm not sure. And we did do some bump posts of, hey, they're open, we're looking for entries, kind of deal. But
yeah, covered all your bases.
Some racers are just last minute, so we deal with it as we come.
Yeah, and I mean, in my opinion, mod short course in the 2-wheel drive class, we probably haven't had a really solid one since like maybe 2015 or 16. It's been a long time since it's been, I think the year before there was 5 or 6 entries. I think the one at Mimi's, there was like 5 or 6 entries. And it's like, like you said, is it really a class if there's 5 or 6 entries out there? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, and some of the manufacturers, there was 2 out of the 4 or 5 that were like, hey, you should probably just stop offering it. It's just a class that nobody's signing up for. They haven't for years. So instead of having it up there, just don't offer it, and let's work on something new.
I remember to me, the peak of the short course modified nationals was in 2011. We had it at, I think it was the track Kevin Jellick worked at in Northern California. I want to say it's not Northwest Hobbies, but it's the track that Eric Vasudin owns.
NorCal
Hobbies. So we had that in 2011, and I remember that one, that just being such a solid 2-wheel short course modified class, and it probably was right after probably the peak of short courses, 09, 2010, 11, 12. That was probably the peak of it, but and then it just kind of trickled down from there. But I wish it was still a great class, but like you said, if you have 5 entries, it's just like, what is this really for?
Yeah, it's cool that it looks more realistic than pretty much anything else. But it's sad that people just aren't interested in it. And if they're not interested in it, then that's fine. Well, there's plenty of other classes. We'll support them and get them stronger and better.
Yeah, obviously, like if you can kind of channel the focus a little bit on these other ones, and keep at it, keep adding to it, and at some point, obviously, you probably will have to draw the line. Is this exhibition for the rest of your life? Or is this going to turn into a Roar National class? You'll probably have to decide, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we won't do it in a vacuum. We've got Leanne Tessman on the board now, and we've got Garland, and I'm badgering somebody else who's an off-road guy to join the committee, who's texted me already once during this interview. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more, but we also reach out to manufacturers, and because we'll send out an email. Hey, is everybody going to be at 10 scale Nats? And wanted to bounce some ideas off people. So I bounced it off the ones that were there. I didn't really have time to figure out a Zoom time to get everybody together while we were there. So we'll just figure out something here in the future where we can bounce the ideas off of.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, we did the watch along with Gotti, and obviously we saw a lot of your interviews, getting right off the track, right into the interview. For the most part, everybody was right there, and they kind of got a couple words in. You could kind of get that expression if they were a winner or a loser, or they weren't happy with what they did. And obviously, you also made it a point to interview B main drivers and all this type of stuff, who they're kind of going through well, it wasn't the weekend that I wanted, but I ended it on a good note type of thing. Yeah. And I thought that was kind of nice. Kai Goff gave some good interviews, and some many others as well, where it was kind of like, it wasn't what I wanted, but I still got to have a good time with my friends. And I had a pretty good main event that you could kind of, hey, go home with and be kind of happy with. And I thought it was kind of nice including those.
Yeah, I feel like that's important, because sure, you get the Dakota, Rivkins, Mayfields that are used to being able to do interviews and stuff like that. But a lot of the guys in the C&D, they've probably never even thought about doing an interview. And they watch everybody else get interviewed. Then you ask them, they're like, what? You're like, yeah. So is there anybody you'd like to thank? Oh yeah, my sponsors. Yeah. my family, my other peeps. And so I don't know. It creates a more personal experience for not only them, but people who know them.
Yeah. Jason, do you think Clayton would be interviewing me 30 years back when I was running all the way down in the P main?
It's like, here we are with Gotti in the P main.
Back to the entries, back in the day, I would go to a national event. I was praying to God there would only be about 10 entries in my class so I could say I was a DA.
Yeah.
Back when nobody reads either, so I can go back home and say, yeah, I made DA.
I think Gotti has bad internet right now.
Oh, you know what? It's raining really bad here. Jason, can you hear me fine?
I can hear you.
Yeah, you just froze for a second.
I got a storm, so let's pray to God that the internet doesn't go down here.
So, mention, obviously you got the modified classes. We got the triple mains there. We still have the modified truck. There was, about 2 solid mains of that. 2-wheel mod, which is the premier class. We talked about this. I still think it's the best class in RC. I mean, in my opinion, I think if I want to win a Worlds, I want to win 2-wheel mod at the Worlds. 8 scale, we determined for me was second, and then 4-wheel mod third. But obviously 8 scale nitro is amazing. I mean, you could throw that in. You could throw it in there as the number 1. Anybody can. But I'm still a little old school. To me, if you can qualify high enough in 2-wheel drive at the Worlds to win it, because you do have to qualify high traditionally to win it, you're a badass. And I think there's just something about that class that to me is, if you can drive that vehicle and you can drive it at that level, I've always felt like you could drive any RC car. It doesn't matter if it's off-road, on-road, oval, monster truck, tank, whatever you want to run, like you can drive it. And but yeah, to me, so we got that 2-wheel mod went down to a third main there
Yeah.
with which was, and obviously Brock was TQ, had a great weekend, but he didn't have the best first two mains, so he kind of, I'm not going to say he let the two guys go, but he made a little bit of an error, and it was Spencer versus Dakota right off the bat.
Yeah, even after they had both, I feel like it was the last day, they both had got behind him at one point. When they came up on him, he let them go. Even though he was TQ and in front of them, and on their pace, literally he was running the same lap times. When they got within 5 car lengths, he just moved out of the way. I was like, wow, man, that's professional.
Yeah.
Like he had great, like you said, he was TQ.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of maybe affecting who was national champ, he just let them go have at it.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of these drivers learn over the years, and it's not for everybody, but I know Mayfield, Mayfield's always told me when he runs these races, he's like, dude, watch me if I'm getting lapped. He's like, I get so far out of the way because he's like, if I'm in a race where I can win and I'm catching up to lap traffic, he's like, I want them to be the heck out of the way. So he's like, I make sure, he's like, when I'm getting lapped, that I'm so far away because I don't want to be that guy getting in the way. And so like you said, some maturity, a lot of maturity from Brock there, kind of maybe recognizing, hey, this isn't my day, but when it is my day, I hope they do the same thing for me. And that's smart. Right. Because there couldn't be very soon. There could be your day, and you have to kind of rely on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting ready to run Worlds here in a month, so they could need that to in a qualifier or whatever. They're rolling up on somebody that is super close to their pace, but not quite on it. And if they just let them go cleanly instead of forcing the issue and maybe losing a few tenths at Worlds, that could mean everything, making the show or not.
I mean, we're watching with Gotti, and they get to the end of the straightaway, and kind of Dakota made a little bit of a bobble, and Spencer jumps those step downs.
That was the most awesome pass. Oh my goodness. The crowd went crazy too. I don't know if you could hear it live, but everybody was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I texted Spencer later. I'm like, did you seriously jump the step downs? He's like, yeah, man, I was full throttle. He was pumped. He said he felt that was, obviously Dakota still got the win, but he said that was the best race he had ever had with Dakota. He's had some, I'm not going to say issues, that he even got into him a little bit in that first main. We weren't sure if it was his fault or if
Dakota, I had to go back and watch the video because there was that I was asked to look at it. And when I looked at it, when I saw it live, it happened underneath me, so I couldn't see. And so I asked the referee, who was Cal, who was there watching it. And he's like, to me, Dakota got a little loose and then kind of slid back in front of Rivkin. So then when I watched the video, it looks like Dakota goes wide. Rivkin's coming straight on his line, and Dakota kind of, as he's correcting his car to get square, they just touch wheels. So I told him I'm not going to penalize anybody for that because that looked like a racing deal to me. And Spencer was right in keeping his line. Dakota was just trying to save his buggy or get it back square, and they touched wheels, and that happened. So.
Yeah, and I was watching it live with Gotti, and my first reaction was, oh man, that Spencer got into him. I'm like, I hope this isn't going to be a big deal, and I'm like,
right.
And then Lefty had posted the video. He was a little more into the controversy. He got his video, he got his slow-mo in there, and I watched it, and I was like, I like Dakota's a little wide here, and then it got loose, like you said, and I was like, I don't think this is Spencer's fault. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he's not going to get torn apart on the internet tonight. So
yeah, there was a dust up in the pits where I kind of sent them both away from each other.
Yeah.
So like not here, not now. Wasn't about that. Just calm down, like go to your corners. Because to me, I've had it happen between Born Horse and Cavallari at an E-Nets to where Cavallari turned left in the middle of the straightaway because he was getting passed. And that was not appreciated. And Born Horse is much bigger than Cav, and they were screaming at each other. I'm like,
Wow.
dude, all these people are watching you. You're representing your brands, and you're looking like fools. Knock it off. Go talk it out somewhere else.
Yep. Yeah, and and I always say that, these guys, everybody, everybody says something to people when they're driving or when there's a bad move. You're always like, "Oh, nice move, idiot," or whatever. But I always try to say sometimes that you try not to take these driver stand insults too personally, because usually, like, once it's over with, you're just like, "Hey, man, what'd you think of that?" You know what I mean? Like, it kind of like you can patch it up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But sometimes, obviously, as long as it doesn't turn too confrontational, physical, there's going to be some of these words said out there, and you kind of have to learn to get past that. I've had younger racers and parents ask me before, and I'm like, well, if they're going to be aggressive and they're going to hit people, and there's sort of a 50-50 situation, you have to kind of learn to deal with talking this out with people. Sometimes you get cursed at. Sometimes they, tell you and you're an idiot. But then usually once it's over with and it passes by, everybody kind of gets back together.
Yeah.
And
because at the end of the day, we're almost all friends. Like,
right.
Whether you're on road, off road, you're traveling around with the same people, going to all these races, and whether you like them or not, that they're your frenemy. Like, nobody else can pick on them because they did something. But like, that's my job to pick on them, and I'm going to defend them if you come after them because they're part of my group. Like, I'm going to be racing them in this race or in the next race or whatever. So I totally get that.
Kind of a story that just happened. I don't know if these guys, if they talked about this, but it was just back at a recent event. I think it was Wicked Weekend, and Mayfield and Born Horse got into it on the track in a qualifier, but they're pitting in the same trailer.
Oh man!
So I forget if it was Paul or somebody telling me, and that they're like, nobody wants to go in the trailer. Like, it's like, all right, well, are they both going to be in there, or what's going to happen? And I guess after a while, they both were in the trailer. And I don't know which one of them, but somebody just goes, okay, this is stupid. You just say what you want to say. I'll say what I want to say, and then we'll go get a beer. All right. And they're like, okay, so they basically just said whatever they wanted to say to each other. And they're like, okay, we're good.
And that's a lot of times just what needs to happen. Like, your perspective of what happened may be different than somebody else's. There was the Huddy race. I won the Huddy race, and one of my teammates thought I was driving like a baboon. And I'm like, I was driving like a baboon? Yeah, you were hitting everything. I'm like, I won. I literally got reverse PO because I wasn't TQ. The guy in front of me had wrecked. And so he wrecked, and I was following him, which then wrecked a bunch of other people. And I guess because I had wrecked into them or whatever, the whole race, I was just wrecking everybody and driving like a baboon. And I'm like, there's two different races here. The race that happened in your head and the one that happened on the track. And really what needed to happen, we just needed to both vent on what happened. And he's like, well, when you were correcting it, you got into me and it ruined my day. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry that it ruined your day. I was literally in the process of wrecking. So I was just trying to get my car back straight. I didn't realize I took you out, and we're still good friends. But for probably a good 2 months, I was like, that next race, I'm going to show him how much of a baboon I can be.
Man,
take him down.
Sounds like me.
So, then we had that. That was, to me, that was one of the highlights. That one going to A3. Spencer won 4-wheel and 2 mains. Dakota won the modified truck in the 2 mains. We had Nate Sutherland, who is an upcoming racer. And I know Thomas, I'm pretty close with Thomas Tran with TLR. He was really proud of Nate, one of the drivers he's been mentoring for a while. And but he had to do it kind of the hard way. He had to win in A2 and 3, I think.
Yeah, yep, he did. I get all the mains were extremely close. Like, if you didn't have your 2 wins, it was literally coming down to tenths or less for the win.
Yeah, I mean it was, and we're gonna see so much of that at the Worlds. It's, I mean, every time we're at Hobby Action, they have they have a bunch of monitors on the wall, and it's in large format, so you can watch and you can see the scoring really out of the corner of your eye. How close this stuff is when they're actually running is, I mean, if you're actually driving and you're thinking how close it is on the clock, you can't do it.
No, you'll make a mistake.
Yeah, like I mean the A qualifier at the races when we go there at the Hobby Action, they are so close, down to 8th and 9th. I mean, it's a bobble, and you're can go from second to last, and you can always come back a little bit, but 5-minute race, it's still not that easy.
At a world level, I'd be surprised if you could come back very much, maybe a spot or 2.
So obviously the hot topic was the 17.5
Yep.
race, the tie breaks situation. I kind of told you we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because I know you got another podcast to do. Keenan loves that stuff a little bit more than I do, and Gotti and I talked about it a little bit. We didn't want to kind of go into it too much. But unfortunate situation with the way that the computer can be set up. There's 2 different forms of tie breaks. Whether there's the system IFMAR uses, there's the system Roar uses. Your 2 best finishes in Roar, the times are added together. In IFMAR, it's your single best run speed. So kind of go into a little bit. You don't have to go too crazy here because you got to do this again, all over again, probably tomorrow. But just real quickly, obviously the tough decision and kind of getting this thing done.
Yeah, so like you said, the computer was set up for IFMAR. I actually went through today and double checked. There wasn't a single driver that missed an A because of the scoring being IFMAR versus Roar. There was, and I've already hit up Tater. Tater should have started in front of Chase, but other than that, the top 5 of any race was not affected, and that was 4-wheel drive where Tater should have started in front of Chase. And Tater has come a long way with being confrontational or accepting, and he's like, no problem. I'll let you know for the next race, and I'm going to take care of his entry. There were a couple 6 and 7s that would have been swapped, but again, everybody that was supposed to be in the show was the correct people in the show. And when it was brought to my attention that the calculation wasn't right, I quickly did it and looked at it and go, and he had Kyle had a 21 and an 18. So that would have been, 39 and Doug had a 20 and 20, and it was 40. I'm like, no, I think it's good. And they're like, could you just do the math? And so I'm like, okay, well, and then I did the math, wrote it down on a piece of paper. I'm like, that's wrong. And then I double checked our rules because that's the way I knew it to be, the way it was supposed to be done too. And it was wrong. And so then I asked our scorekeeper, like, hey, how is this possible that this is wrong? I mean, Live RC is a computer. I write software all day long. Like you can't make a mistake. It's like, it's math. And then realize where the mistake was. And so once we switched it and had it recalculate, it was correct. And I had to go apologize to Kyle because that interview was awesome. Like it was his first national championship. He'd been working hard and it's not a good situation to have to go explain to somebody that, their first national title is he's going to lose by 23 thousandths of a second on a tiebreaker. And I told him, I'm like, I know there's nothing, not a single thing I could say that's going to make you feel any better right now. But after this calms down, if you want to talk, please hit me up. And if you ever want to come back to a war race again, let me know and I'll take care of it.
Yeah,
But
and
I
I
had to
mean,
default to what our rules were. That's basically what it came down to. No matter
yeah,
how passionate people were
yeah,
surrounding me and yelling at me at what I could and couldn't do, I was like, I get that. I was Marine for 22 years. I'm pretty stubborn in following what the rules are supposed to be. I know Roar didn't do that in the past. It would be more of who uh, gave the best argument, but I'm not that person. Unless there's not a rule and we have to go by some precedents, I'm just going to follow the rules.
and it's tough. But I've been in some of those situations at races where we've tried to make some decisions at our races. And what the most difficult part that I've found is people won't leave you alone. They,
Nope.
they follow you everywhere. Like there's a pack of like 5, 6, 7 people that just follow you everywhere, and they won't let you talk to the others to make a decision or to decide. They want to kind of drive the decision a little bit themselves.
Yep.
And I think that, and it's natural. I mean, I'm sure I would be the exact same way if the situation had happened and I was involved. But that's the toughest part that I've found is you really want you want to take an opportunity to get together with the people in that situation that you trust and say, okay, let's figure this out and let's make the decision that we can. But when these people come over and they're like all over you and you're just like, hey, just give us some time here, give it. And that's to me what's the most difficult thing, because everyone wants to start laying into you and giving you their side of the story and whatever. And it's like, well, hold on, we haven't this isn't done yet. Let's talk this over. And to me, that's always the most difficult thing.
Yeah, part of it was we should have announced a provisional champion or
Yeah.
until we can verify in scoring and double check, triple check. We should have just said, pending pending final review of all the points, whatever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we'll learn from that and make sure that we don't actually call them national champion, until we've had a chance for everything to be finished and us to go through and make sure all the scoring's right.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard you say it before, and I've heard other people say it before. Maybe it just wasn't said at the time, but this is unofficial.
Right.
We're doing this right after the moment, right? So it's like, hey, at a lot of races, cars still have to go through tech, like at the nitro events. That's probably where I hear it most often. Yep. This is unofficial because the car still has to clear tech after the nitro main. And so usually race directors and, people in position like yourself will make that announcement. This is unofficial until the cars clear tech. That's where you hear it most often.
Yep.
I think some of these races, there's a little bit of a jump, not jump to conclusions, but everybody's so ready for it to be over at that spur of the moment that sometimes the things aren't necessarily official yet.
Right.
And one thing I thought about just a few hours, obviously I messaged all these guys, told them they did a good job. Even Kyle, even, everybody that won or didn't win, that was in a great race. But, at some point or another, they're going to get these opportunities. You can have these opportunities again. And, these guys are, for the most part, everybody in this is a really good guy. But these are hard decisions, and you do have to kind of live and die with them on the spot like that.
Yeah. I worked with Jeff Parker for so long running the races and saw the indecisiveness and how it was affecting everybody for so long. I promised myself that was not going to happen again. So that I will, like you said, I went and talked to Thomas and Rivkin came over and talked to me for a little while. Like I did get a chance to talk to some people and had to push some people away. Like, let me talk to Spencer and hear what he's got to say. Let me talk to Thomas and hear what he's got to say. And then they would all huddle back to the point where Danny Paz, who was taking pictures for us, he was like, dude, how did you you were surrounded by animals for like 30 straight minutes. I'm like, yeah, Yep, sure was. It was like, that was crazy. They were screaming at you. And I'm like, yep, they were. Like, I get it. I'm a racer too. So I can get that passion and I I can just imagine the feeling Kyle was going through and Doug was going through. And Doug at first going, wait a second. Like when I do this, I think this works. How does math not add up? And
Well, that was something I thought about, and I was trying to get to this point earlier, and I forgot, which was Doug recognizing that, hey, wait a second here. He went back and looked at it, I guess, and he said, wait a second, maybe this isn't exactly right. And
right.
I mean,
There was he didn't have to file a protest because he wasn't protesting the results. He was just asking if I could make sure that the math was correct because it was a lot closer than I thought. Obviously, 23 thousandths of a second. So like, there he didn't have to pay the protest fee and file paperwork because this was literally, hey, this is what is the rule and exactly how was it calculated. That's not a protest. That's a question. So there was nothing filed. There was no mad anger or anything from either one of them, actually. Even Kyle. Kyle was not mad and throwing things and angry. He was devastated. To be honest, he was just devastated.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he came out, did the podium picture, didn't throw any attitude or nothing. Total professional. So like, even though the situation was horrible and lots of people didn't like the decision or whatever, the drivers themselves handled themselves very well and very professional and should be commended. Like that's a tough situation.
So we'll kind of move out of that one into we had just a couple questions, not really even pertaining to that so much, but one of them was two of them were just about some different events. But Joe Zaire brought up that have we ever thought about a large scale Roar Nationals like fifth scale? He really loves fifth scale, and he was asking, has there ever been any thoughts on having some large scale stuff like fifth scale, I guess?
So Connie Svetson, I think is how you pronounce his last name, is the fifth scale rep for EFRA, and he's been asking me the same question. I wouldn't mind holding a fifth scale event if we've got, I don't know if we have tracks or how many participants we have to be able to do that. It's probably something we should. I'll just break there. It would have to be researched and see if we could pull off an event where people could get to. I don't know if you can pack a fifth scale car in your luggage and fly. I don't know.
My fallback all the time, obviously, Joe here talking about it, but my fallback is always Matt Olson. He does more fifth scale events than anybody, I would say, in the world. He is extremely into fifth scale. They run that one there. He runs a bunch in California, but he's been all over doing fifth scale, and they've traveled with them. And I'd say the number one thing is that we talked about earlier was the entries. If you can get entries, and if people will sign up ahead of time, you can't have 3 entries and have a full nationals for it. You got to have entries, and there is plenty of tracks out there. And then, is there a set of rules? And, there's a whole, those cars are almost like real full-size cars. I mean, you got a lot going on there. So you really have to have people like the Matt Olsons and people he's familiar with to see if you can have an event.
Yeah, I mean, if he's doing events or doing video for the events, then he probably has some contacts that we could talk to about it, and we could probably leverage EFRA's current rules and bring them into the Roar rule book to get some kind of rules.
And there's different ones. There are different fifth scale vehicles and classes, and so yeah, I would definitely, if that's all at all interest, I would definitely reach out to Matt. I'm sure he would definitely be able to tell you if this is going to work or not. And
sorry, I was just writing my notes.
Yeah. The next thing we had was Tom Bishop was asking about the 40 plus stuff, do we think they're ever, is there any talks of actually making it a few, Roar title again, or what do you think is going to be the future with that?
So in talking to the committee, they feel like if the entries are there, then it should be a national title. So we will probably get back to that. I don't think the entries dropped a whole lot. But I think when they run the master's class, then they're not running mod as well. So they would have to pick. You're either going to run old guys or full guys. And so yes, there has been talks about it. I'm not sure if it should be 40 or maybe 45, but there are talks about making it a thing again.
I think the scale's moving up a little bit.
I was going to say you're going to hit 50.
Yeah. Well, I'm 53. Not that I ever act like it, but I don't feel like I need to race in an older class unless I'm just trying to get laps and figure things out.
So, and then one that Will Britton brought up, which I think it has been a Roar class in the past, is 10 scale dirt oval. That is kind of it's a very large class in RC now and again. And I remember in the 80s, early 90s, they used to have dirt oval nationals, but has anybody brought that up or talked about it?
There's a track in South Carolina or North Carolina that asked about being able to host it. I think my biggest problem right now is, again, rules. Like the oval community, rightly or wrongly, decided to do their own thing and said, okay, we're done with running more. I would love to get them back. I have tons of fun racing oval, dirt or carpet, either one. It's fun. So I don't have a definite answer, but I would hope by next year we could have at least a carpet or a dirt oval nationals. So if you're interested and you're listening to this podcast or watching the podcast, email President at Roar Racing with your ideas on how we could get a dirt oval nationals done next year.
Okay, well, I mean that's a good idea. So we got Will Britton asking for 35 plus. Come on, Will. So
35 plus.
Two other things I kind of wanted to bring up, which was the Worlds coming up was one of them, and then another thing I wanted to just give you the opportunity to talk about was maybe what's next or what's on the Roar agenda kind of going into next year. So you can pick either one to talk about first. But first was going to be, the upcoming Worlds. That's a big deal for Roar. It only comes maybe every 10 years to the U.S. for, this is 10 scale off-road. So we got last time was 2013 in Chico, this year 2023. So Worlds in America. Roar is obviously there. That's the block that's chosen this time. So talk to us a little bit about that, and then maybe what the future of Roar, and then we're done.
Okay. So, of course, Worlds is going to be in Chandler, Arizona. We're still trying to get some clarification on the personnel that either Roar or the track or IFMAR is providing, so that we don't show up and go, okay, we're missing this person and this person. We kind of know before we get there. But the facility is looking amazing. Larry's doing a really good job, at least talking to me and getting the roster so we can print out ID cards. And we've got some media people that are coming that I think one of them I still have to forward to Larry. But this will be my first Worlds as a Roar president or as doing part of the Worlds. I did help a few Worlds in tech in California once, but I wasn't even part of the opening ceremony or anything, so I didn't get to experience the whole Worlds vibe per se. So this is going to be a learning experience for me, and I'll be relying on a lot of the manufacturers. Like Brent Thelke was hitting me up about some stuff, and Gord was hitting me up about some stuff, which is great because I don't know, and I'm literally going into this blind because I'm asked for meeting after meeting with IFMAR and have gotten crickets. So I was just like, oh, come on. You guys are supposed to be the ones that tell me, or just look in the rule book. And then you look in the rule book and their class rules say something different than their world rules, and which one has precedence. Like, what am I supposed to follow, kind of deal, which they would be able to answer if I could get the answer. So
Yeah.
a little nervous going into Worlds. The shirts should be being made, although we're gonna amend the graphics based on some input from the manufacturers, because before, I guess they used to just say Roar. My idea was going to have the Canadian and American flag with Roar, but from actual people that have been to these, that it's more of a country thing, so it should kind of be like Canadian flag with War World's Driver and an American flag with War World's Driver for whichever country you're representing. So I've got to get the graphics changed a little bit, but those should be nice. We had one driver switch out. Samuel Moran is now going. I feel like there's open spots that we have a couple other people that want to go, but if Mar won't respond, that if they're really open or if they have somebody else who's coming to fill those spots.
You know, that was one thing I was going to mention was it is a lot of American drivers. This is probably, I'm trying to think of back in terms of how many guys I've seen or drivers that are interested in going to the Worlds, but has to be one of the largest American contingents that's going to be represented at this race. I mean, there's got to be, it feels like there's 50 plus
60.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, we have 60 people from America.
Yeah. I mean, I know people are really interested in it. And another thing that was brought up, I believe, I can't remember if it was Paul or maybe brought this up, that, Brent Telke, I talked to him about this, and with so many racers resumeing into the Worlds and getting in, you said 60 drivers. I think it's also had a little bit of an effect on the turnout at some of the other events too, because it's, like you said earlier, it's a big budget for the 10 or 12 days, whatever it is. And there's been some guys that have committed to the Worlds, and I think it's kept them from a couple of other events, but that's individually affecting this only Worlds only.
Yeah, I could see that, because the Worlds being 1 month after the Nats, probably some people, I know there was some that are going to Worlds that did not go to Nats, and I don't blame them. But one thing that everybody needs to start thinking about is we never had criteria to get to a Worlds before. And so as a committee, we've come up with, if you haven't gone to our Nats, we're likely just going to leave those spots empty. If you're not supporting Roar to go to nationals, unless like Delky broke his leg, like sometimes things happen. You signed up, but something happened and you weren't able to make it, kind of deal. But, I went 12 years ago and I haven't attended another Roar race. And I understand Roar was kind of fishy back then, but we're changing and we're getting better. So we want you to at least have some big race experience from a Roar perspective, not just big races to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I had brought that up with Tyler today, actually. I was telling him, I said, I wonder how many guys are going to run the Worlds but didn't run either Roar National on either side of it. I said that would be a little disappointing to me, because they didn't run the one where you could actually qualify, or the one this year, right? But they resume into the race anyway. It's like, that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think we had 10 of the 60.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some of them, probably 5 or 6 of them had done a Worlds before or a Nats 10, 12 years ago, kind of deal, but nothing current. Like you said, not the last couple Nats. And I would say, I wouldn't even think about this one, but the Worlds qualifier one and the one prior to it, they didn't attend either one. So
yeah, I remember I resumed into the first Worlds I could go to, which was the '93 Worlds in Basildon.
Wow,
and
I didn't realize you're that old.
I started racing at the end of 1990, and so I raced all of '91, and then in '92 I learned that there was a Worlds, right? And I'm like, well, I want to go to the Worlds, right? And I resumed I don't know who wrote it for me, or maybe I worked on it. We sent it to Roar, and they denied me to go to the 93 Worlds. And I was so bummed, man. I was like, I should
That was your
be,
motivator.
yeah, I'm like, I should be there, and, I should be at this race. And I just remember there was some of my friends that went, oh, quite a few of my friends, and they'd been in it a little bit longer, a little more experienced. And there wasn't the internet back then. You couldn't watch it online, and you couldn't kind of live it. So it was just kind of disappointing not being there. But I'd only been racing for 2 years, but I still felt like, hey, I'm ready for this. I'm going. But they denied me, and I don't remember who was doing it at the time, but I was like, you know what? Next time, I'm not going to have to resume in. I'm just going to straight up qualify.
I should have tried to resume in, and my last Nats was 1996.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be alone. I'll just put it that
way. Wow. That's crazy.
You know what?
What was weird was when I asked how we picked World's drivers, we had no criteria. They were like, "You're president. You just get to pick." And I'm like, "What? Shouldn't they have to have done something?" Well, I mean, if you decide I'm like, that just seems not right. Like you should.
Wow.
And so because it's that, I'm not going to change it, without making some kind of announcement so people know. If I want to go to a nationals, I should go to a regionals and send that result, and go to a nationals and send that result. And I can't fault people for regionals because we don't have a region director for every region yet, and some of those regionals aren't being held. But I can fault people for not going to nationals once we say, hey, look, if you want to go to a Worlds, you need to make sure you're going to a nationals.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, exciting. That's, a little less than a month away now. I know Larry and the guys are sweating over there. I know it's not an easy job, but they'll get it done and make everybody proud. We're going to be there. We'll have our full team there.
Nice.
We'll have our full group of people there from the shop. So, we're ready. We try to get to all these. We try to support them what we can. And so going into Roar, kind of just quickly, maybe a little glimpse of the future, what you're maybe thinking about, and then kind of going into next year, and we'll wrap this up.
So next year at our events, I would like to see us with a check-in process where we just do some kind of badge, because we have to take pictures, or Live RC is taking pictures. Whoever our media group ends up being is taking pictures. So leverage that, give them a little badge, whether they wear or not, that's totally up to them. But at least they're not spending $100 going to a race and then going home with nothing. At least, hey, I participated. Like when I, worked for the Olympics, I'd get an Olympic badge kind of deal, and I hung that on my wall for years. I wasn't in the Olympics. I was a performer at the Olympics kind of deal. So, I mean, just nice little things to make the event a little more polished. And hopefully with the media crew, I'd like to see more commercials between the races instead of dead time. Like go to a commercial break, then go to the interview, then go to the next race. I would like to see where the one who wins the race doesn't have to marshal, and they could just do the interview and chill. I haven't got that through committee yet, but I'm going to try and put that through. Just things to make life better in general. Even website stuff. We need to be better at not just the membership now that goes to your email, but for the affiliates and tracks. I don't feel like we're doing enough for them. We don't have probably not a accurate track listing for all the tracks. And as far as I'm concerned, we should be promoting the sport in general. So whether they're a Roar track or not, I would like to have their information and have a list of tracks. So wherever area you're in, you can click and see there's 5 oval tracks around me. There's a carpet off-road. There's a dirt off-road. There's an 8-scale track, and you can go. Just kind of make the driver experience better at our nationals going forward.
Yeah, so obviously Michael just commented that the vinyl sponsor sheet that Sean and Hobbytown had made for this year, he thought that was awesome. So
Yeah, they had these little vinyl banners that had sponsors on them, which was kind of cool. Like, I don't know if they were handing them out or whatever, but they did a lot of nice stuff for that track. Even the parts of the track that were elevated that they had like a wall around, the wall was wrapped.
Ooh.
You know, so it wasn't just, you know, this dirt mound that kind of went over. It was like it just cut edges and looked nice. It made it hard to marshal that one spot, but it looked nice.
So we got Charlie Mack. He was just basically, he was referring to one of our commercials we used to run. We had the song in it. It was you know, a EDM song or something. But yeah, that was one of our classic first commercials. Maybe we'll roll that back out this year.
Yeah, I mean, all we have to do is give it to Live RC, and I'll force them to put it in the middle, because, like, I feel like we're not doing enough for the affiliates. Like, we're not touting all, you know, who's our manufacturers and who's paid their fees and done all this stuff, and like, I feel like we can do more. I'm not sure I have time to do more right now, but like, I want to do more and get the stuff to be like value added for the sponsors. J Concept sponsors a race, and okay, they get a little J Concept logo, but they sponsored the whole race. Like, why aren't they part of everything? Why isn't in the, like, especially between rounds, run a J Concept commercial in that dead spot for like every 10 minutes or 15 minutes? Just run it again. Put some music in the background during the dead time, instead of just, okay, we're going to stop broadcast now for a little bit. Okay, now we're going to start it. A little more polished things to make everybody's experience better.
So Larry Tom here, he's asking or saying he wants to see a Roar commercial, and asking if you kind of have one, I guess.
No, and I'm a video guy, so I could probably make something, but again, it's more time.
There you go.
So we have talked to Hannah about helping us with a gift for the winter, but that's kind of a future thing that should come together and be nice for everybody, but we'll see how that works. So yes, Larry, I've thought about doing something, even just a wrap up of the year's races, try to take some of our lifetime video and snip it together, just a year in review kind of deal.
Yes, it's Charlie Mack, the Tekin commercial. That was blew up. I totally agree. I know exactly what he's talking about. It like did this big explosion or something.
Oh man,
so much louder than everything else, and yeah, that was a tough one to control.
Huh? I didn't even know people had made those commercials. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, we have you know, we've probably made 5 or 6 of them over the years that we've used at different events, and you know, our current one that we have, they always ask. It's different race events, and they get it played. You know, it's kind of on a little bit of a loop. So it's kind of,
if you have 5 or 6 different ones, then like you could kind of cycle through them so it didn't get kind of stale.
Yeah, and that was kind of the idea at one point, especially when Live RC was really, I guess I'll say, on their game. When they had brought in a big crew to these events, we were, you know, all of them kind of had that Nitro Challenge level of effort, and you know, we had to really react to that. And those, you know, we had different commercials, and we were asked for a lot of media related content in those days, and yeah, it'd be kind of nice to get back to that. And I believe Larry asked us about a commercial for the World, so we got to come up with something fresh.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes retro is good too, though. I mean, if you have one of the commercials that was from like when you first founded, that would be kind of
2003. Cool.
Yeah.
BJ4 commercial.
That one you can't even see anymore. To me, I watched the video that we had, and I'm like, how did I even watch this? Like, it's so blurry and it's like so
That'd be awesome, though, man.
I remember when we did that, there used to be people that would email me and say, hey, I was watching that video, and I think you could go a little softer on the suspension. I'm like, how do you?
I have to see this commercial.
Yeah, you watched the video today. We still have it. I think it's on our YouTube channel, and it was a commercial. And I was trying to think if it was a clip or it was a commercial of sorts. And it is so hard to watch the car on the track and know anything that's going on. And I remember people used to critique the suspension. And it's like, all right, man, we'll try it. No problem.
You need 30 weight back there in those shocks.
It's like those those memes you see on social media now where they said these were the graphics in 1996 of like the football video games and the like.
Right. Yeah. The graphic comparison of Tom Brady when he started to now. I mean, I don't know. Back then, you must have been like, "Wow, look how clear that looks."
Yeah.
Now you're like, "Ugh."
Yeah, it's really hard to tell what's going on. So that's it. That's all I got. We appreciate you, Clayton, and all the work and effort and all the participation you're doing at the events, the interviews, and he might be freezing up here a little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah. All good. And he's out. There we go. He froze up.
But yeah, obviously we appreciate him being on. It was obviously about a 2-hour deal, but it takes a long time to get through all the different events and kind of dive into everything. But obviously he's done more Roar stuff in this year than I think many of the others have done, at least publicly. That's kind of what everybody sees is the stuff that's public. So it's nice to see him at the races, doing the interviews, running around. And so thanks to him. Thanks. And hopefully we can see a list of the 2024 events coming out soon, when they're going to be. And we'll see which ones we're all going to be able to attend. And everybody needs to sign up early, please.
Yeah.
We're all planning on this. And if you want to do it, man, try to get in there and get your name added to the registrations at any of these events. It's really, really important.
Yeah, and I like you guys were talking earlier in the interview about the making stuff like the regionals seem important again. You know, I've messaged. Oh, Clayton's back. There he is. Oh, you're back. You froze up and disappeared on us.
Thunderstorm come through and everything flashed. I'm like, oh no!
Let's do that. Exactly. You live in Pennsylvania?
We live in Virginia Beach.
Okay. Well, I have a thunderstorm going on right now too. So I was just praying the whole time that my internet was going to hold up.
Typically, I never lose power because I'm connected to the firehouse on the power grid. So, if it goes, it just flickers. But it flickered like 4 times. So somebody must have hit a pole or something.
Wow. Okay.
Well, we did good. We were kind of signing you off there, telling you, good job. We can't.
Yeah, we covered for you.
You're the best.
The announcement, I don't know when that comes out of the 2024 events and schedule, but we're kind of waiting for that. And we appreciate you. And we'll see you, or I'll see you at the Worlds, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
see you soon.
Thanks again. And we told everybody next year, 2024, sign up early and pay if you're planning on doing it at all. Larry Tom knows. He knows the game. If you're going to sign up, get paid and commit.
Yeah, because until you pay, it doesn't even process you as an entry in our system. So you have to literally go on the backside and see what happened.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it's one thing if you're trying to put together the money and it is sort of a tight for you. Everybody, of course, understands that. But if you're rolling in an RV at the race, you could probably get signed up a little bit quicker. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And if you're thinking about going and don't have the funds together yet, email me, message me on Facebook, something, so that we have an idea. I'm fine with that too.
Perfect. I mean, you can't ask for a better deal than that. And there you go.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Clayton. Thanks a lot. And,
good luck tomorrow.
Yeah. Best of luck with everything.
It'll be fun.
It'll be fun.
I won't be physically surrounded. It'll just be internet surrounded.
I told you it would be kind of, I wanted to make this a little more positive and easygoing, and because it is a climb, and obviously time goes on. We'll all, people will forget a little bit about the Ifmar versus Roar tiebreak, but it does happen, and it sounds like it will kind of smooth over time, and that's all I got.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate Clayton, and and if there's anything you can ever do for us, let us know. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. See you. Thank you. All right. Clayton Young, everyone. Clayton, you can call Larry Tom anytime. There you go. That was awesome. Good. Some good stuff in there, guys.
Perfect. I'm ready to go eat.
Yep. I appreciate everybody for joining us in the chat room. And if you're listening to this in the audio version, don't forget you can head over to Facebook, which you probably already give us a like, and head over to YouTube. Tell a friend. Head over to YouTube. Let's pump the numbers up and subscribe there. And I think this is the last pod before. It's definitely the last pod before Mugen Challenge.
Yep.
So I'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if any of you guys are going to that race, stop by. I'll be hanging out with Jason. So stop by and say hi. And
I believe that we got some. I got a seat reserved. We'll get you in there with Red David Scott. He's got a trailer there where Mayfield's pitting. So we got some AC to cool us down.
Oh, nice.
Red's gonna hook us up. So if it's too hot, we got a place to go. And we have one more thing that Larry Tom brought up earlier. I was trying to avoid it, but I'm not. Did Mason Templeman? He wasn't running our short course body, so we didn't get that win this year in short course for the high flow body. And Doug apologized to me already. Doug LaRiviere, he said that he's sorry he couldn't get that short course win for us to keep that winning body streak going, but I still think we're doing pretty good. We'll see what the grand total here still is.
Spencer's saying modified short course only through.
What's that?
Spencer checking in there in the chat.
Just making sure here.
Checking the stats.
Yeah.
Sturgill saying 13.5 doesn't count. Ah, oh, everything counts, right, Jason?
Everything counts in large amounts. Isn't that a song? No, that's Mayfield's list.
Joe Zaire saying he just went drinking on his e-bike. Drinking on the e-bike and just got home, and you're still going. Yes, we are. We're still here.
Well,
Nick DeVito, Depeche Mode.
Yeah, that's it. Man, I can't find it. Well.
Yeah. Oh, well.
It doesn't matter anymore.
It doesn't matter. It's over with. Done. All right,
I think we were in the high 20s. But, we could always come back next year. We could win again. But, we had a pretty good streak going. Cavallari was the other one that got us once. So Mason Templeman got us the other time. Oh, well.
What are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're headed into the Mugen Challenge.
Yep.
So we'll see you there this weekend. And appreciate everybody for joining us again. And we'll check back in after the Mugen Challenge for 254. See you then.
Later.